potentially be more dangerous than even nuclear weapons. So it is very timely for us to have an opportunity to discuss AI today. We have three panels who will give their, again, perspective on AI for about 5 minutes. They're going to sit and then they're going to talk. And then we'll discuss three topics. Okay? And so let me first introduce our first speaker, Landon Van Dyke. He's a senior advisor for energy, environment, and sustainability at the U.S. Department of State. Next speaker, Nagendra Roy, is a director of IT at Aptude Incorporation. He's also vice chair of executive board at the PMI Atlanta chapter. Last but not least, Michael Gore is a senior director of software engineering for LexisNexis Risk Solutions, a division of Rex Group. In this position, is responsible for directing all technical activities and steps related to the development of new product, maintenance, production, reliability, disaster recovery, performance, and innovation.
So thank you very much for the opportunity, and thank you very much to hang out with this cool panel too, which we're going to have a even better conversation afterwards, so you guys will have to huddle around us and ask us lots more questions. Most people wonder why the sustainability folks are in the AI space. That's usually the first question I get. My job is to make sure all of the American embassies around the world are environmentally friendly and are energy efficient. Understand last year we spent roughly $500 million on electricity alone for all of those buildings. You know, we have about 22,000 buildings around the world. We have about 90,000 computers around the world, 14,000 vehicles. So we have a very large property asset all around the world. And for good management, I need to be able to have eyes on all of that. And for me to have eyes on all of that, I'm going to need a lot more people than I have already. And so this is where AI starts to fit into that equation. So for us, we're using a lot of the Internet of Things, a lot of devices out there. We're putting on embassies, sensors, monitors, and we're getting about 15,000 data points every 5 or 15 minutes from 274 cities around the world. So you can imagine I'm getting lots of data very quickly, rapidly, and I still want to be able to make sense of it. And I want to be able to see things that I'm not even aware that I should be looking for. And again, this is where we're starting to insert the AI feature. Understand that just in Washington, D.C. alone, there's a real estate company that monitors commercial buildings. And they monitor about 90 buildings in the D.C. area. They have an ops center that can monitor what's going on in those buildings on a 24/7, 7 hours a day activity. And they keep it manned with about 12 people throughout the entire day. When they do that, they can save about 30% of their energy on average, because they realize certain machines are broken or certain things are turning on and off that shouldn't be, and they have humans that can recognize what's going on and help save 30%. Now understand, if I'm spending $500 million a year, 30% is a lot of money that I can save and put elsewhere. And so for me, if I can develop AI that's more on a global scale, utilizing cybersecurity, because also I'm very much concerned with the cybersecurity space, we have not just a solution for our organization, but we have a solution for lots of municipalities around the world, lots of utility companies around the world. We basically have a footprint or a blueprint for smart cities of the future. And so one of my goals is not only just to build the AI for the State Department, but to share it and make it public. So, and we'll get into the algorithms and making them public in the later part of the speech. But I'll give you guys one scenario real quick of how important that is. So one smart meter, at the State Department, we have an HR building across the street, okay? We put a meter, just one meter, on that building. This was maybe 4 years ago. And we hooked it up to a computer so we could see what it was doing on a daily basis. Within 1 week, we saved $50,000 monthly from what we discovered. And what we discovered was the air handlers in the building, the air conditioners, the air handlers, were turning on and off every 5 minutes. And the reason they were turning on every 5 minutes is because there was an $8 thermometer on the roof that's supposed to tell the computer to use outdoor air or indoor air, depending on the temperature. It was broken. And because it was broken, the U.S. government was spending $500,000 a year because we didn't know an $8 thermometer on the roof was broken. This is where AI can help us find anomalies where we would never have found it or even thought about looking for it. So that's my example, and I'll hand it off.
Thank you so much, Landon. Thanks, Yusun. Wonderful opportunity to talk SAUPO community. It's a third year consecutively I am here, enjoying all the time. Thank you so much, Dr. May. My perspective, since Landon talked about a lot of statistics about the data, and like I don't want to overwhelm you with those information or with that information. So let's put a little human aspect to it, right? So let's put it in two different ways, healthcare versus, or human behavior versus the profit or corporate business side of it. So first example, from the human care side of it, there are a lot of opportunities which we can use AI in the fashion where even human being can do that, but in terms of making it a repeated process, and we can evolve that process through machine learning. That's where the AI comes in picture. It's not like, okay, we are replacing human beings by having AI, basically. So that's the wrong interpretation, I would say. And this is a disruption, basically, to the industry. So we have to understand, okay, no change is easy. When changes comes or occurs, we are very, hesitate to accept those things. Around that human care side of it, there are a lot of things which we are doing right now in terms of taking care of those old age people, in terms of letting them know because they are very hesitating in terms of telling everything to us. So we are reading through our machine learning and Internet of Things, or with their behavioral things, so that we can incorporate those things in our application and give them a better treatment, or as well as the respect for the rest of their life. So that is another thing. Emergency alerts are getting created by the artificial intelligence in a lot of healthcare hospitals and clinics and all. At the same time, since we are in the business symposium, let's talk about little bit on the sales side of it. So you have heard about the Fitbit and Amazon and all that kind of big companies where they are making big use of this artificial intelligence by learning your behavioral changes while using websites, or when you are going for a Walmart store purchasing, what do you do, how do you serve, how many times you return, which products, what products. So that kind of machine learning, they are doing it, and at the same time they are trying to evolve their products so that they can bring that awareness as well as the desire in the human beings. So that is the sales aspect of it. Again, in the sales assistant side of it, lot of CRM tools in the market where they are going to use all this artificial intelligence in terms of making those conversation with the customers or the consumers, where there is no human being talking to them, just to understand what they are willing to do, or they are willing to have those changes. A machine is doing on behalf of a human being, but ultimately human being is going to take the decision on that, okay, how they are going to implement those things in real-time environment. So again, I'm emphasizing on that, like, okay, we are not replacing, or nobody can replace human being. And I told in our last SAUPO, who is smart? phone is a smartphone or we are smart. So we are smart, we are using smartphone and we made that smartphone. So human being is smart, mobile is smarter, but not more than us. So with that, I will hand it over to Michael. Thank you so much.
I guess, I just want to talk a little bit more, my perspective for the AI. A lot of times when people talk about AI, some of the obvious things come to your mind, like AlphaGo, right? So that which is beat our, the number one, Go chess maker, and also the robot produced by Boston Dynamics. I mean, you guys, I don't know how many of you watched that video where they can walk, they can jump, you kick them, somehow you kick them on the ground, they can get back on. I mean, that's a really fun video to watch. Very recently, what they can do is that the two robots, they can actually help with each other. One hold the door, and then the other pass through, and close the door behind it. It's amazing, right? So those are some obvious AI concepts come to you. It's like those are the robots really start to, do a lot of things that, human beings are used to do. I mean, you really have the intelligence, what the human being has. That's why it's called artificial intelligence, right? And also, but I think AI probably is more evasive than that today. Actually, if you look at your phone today, I have probably about 20 apps on my iPhone today. Lastly I counted, probably there are at least 10 apps, which is somehow they know me. Like I use Spotify. I mean, a lot of you guys probably use Spotify as well, right? They know what music you like. They generate that kind of, what is called, daily mix for you every day. Surprisingly, I like those daily mix created for me. By just listening to a few songs. Sometimes I even play my daughter's songs. Surprisingly good, right? So, and of course you use Google Map. Every time when you go out, you use Google Map. And all this kind of apps is everywhere, is in your life. This is what Landon was just talking about, the Internet of Things. We're really living a collected world today. It is estimated that by 2020, there will be 20 billion devices that is going to be collected, what do we call the Internet of Things. It's going to generate 17 bytes of data. I don't know even what that called. That's how much data is actually going to generate, you have to process. So really, if you think about this AI, is about to make better decision through all this data point. To put these things a little bit more into context, I want to relate a little bit more to what I do, what my company do. Thank you for introducing me. My company is called LexisNexis Risk Solutions. We are a data company. We're a big data company before anyone else called them a big data company. That's probably about 20, 25 years ago. We actually built the largest contributor database by all the insurance carriers in this country. And today, we have customers in 100 countries. We serve the top 50 U.S. banks. I mean, literally, when the bank wants to do business, if they want to know who are the bad guys, where the money goes, who is doing the money laundering, and all those kind of stuff, we provide a lot of information for banks to trace those bad guys. We do business for 8 out of 10 big banks in the world. We do 98 out of 100 personal line insurance customers in the United States. So those are the data that we actually process and really provide values to our customers. What is behind all this intelligence, right? We call it this artificial intelligence. So much data. How you can make all those smart decisions. I mean, of course, there are a lot of algorithms, there are a lot of technologies, there are a lot of techniques. Think about it, when you deal with so many devices in the world, how you can link all this data to tell who you are, to know what the risk related to everything about you. Or think from if you're the center, all the devices collected you, how do I know who you are? So those are the technologies actually today is already running in our data center. There are two things really that is driving all this, intelligence from our organization. One is the HPCC technology. We have the supercomputer technologies that we actually homegrown. I know some of the people sitting here, especially for Kennesaw, we actually had a computer lab established with them for those students to experiment with our HPCC technology. Another very important pillar of our business is this advanced analytical modelings. So basically is to use all these models, use machine learning, use all these newer ways of looking into the data, try to drive the intelligence out of those. Certainly we can talk a little more about all those applications, but to summarize what really my perspective here is that it's really, if you look at open the hood, when you look at just this phone, it's nothing, but behind the scene, there are somewhere what we call cloud computing. There are somewhere somebody's collecting your data. There are some people like us. We are looking into those data. We're linking those data. We're trying to drive some value out of this data, and then come back serve you better.
Okay, thank you very much for our panels one more time. So could you give us a round of applause? All right. So we'll talk about a little bit of topics, 3 different topics, and then, as you know, we are using AI almost every day, weather forecastings and house areas and everything. We don't see a lot of problems yet, but in, say, 50 years, 100 years later, then some scientists and some engineers, they're talking about AI technology is more dangerous than even nuclear weapons, right? Especially when AI eventually outperforms than a human being in terms of all the reasonings and everything, even emotion. I don't know if that is possible, but then we call it a singularity, and then if that point, then maybe we cannot stop them. And then I heard that 2017, last year, Google also tried to invent some kill switches so that just in case AI kicks in and they try not to stop, then we'll have to do something, right? So, in short, then what do you think about 50 years, 100 years later, maybe 200 years later, then what would happen, and is it really a blessing for our human beings, or would it be really cursed that we'll have to stop?
That's not a loaded question at all. When people, especially in DC, we have lots of people that are trying to get a handle on all this. They always ask, well, where are we in AI? Is it a problem? Is Elon correct? Should we be really worried about this? And normally what I do is I go back to my teenage years when I used to just watch Star Trek all the time and evaluate what episodes did they have AI issues. Because a lot of the times the future has already been written by the sci-fi authors who had thought about this decades ago. And if you look at Star Trek, and if you look at some of the sci-fi movies and shows, there's usually 2 scenarios for AI gone awry, okay? You have one scenario where the ship is out of control, it's heading to the sun. And the people in the ship are like, we got to stop this ship from heading to the sun. And then the other scenario is some human-looking robot has gone out of control, and it is doing something that we don't want it to do, or it's very unpredictable, and we can't figure it out, and we're trying to stop it, okay? Now, the distinct difference between these 2 scenarios is usually the ship is going to the sun because it has some bacteria on the ship, and it knows if I go to the sun, I can burn off the bacteria, and I can save the ship, okay? The robot is doing something, and we just don't know exactly what. But the difference between the 2 is, in the first scenario, humans gave the objective to the AI. It basically said, preserve the ship at all cost. and the ship was just trying to carry out that objective. In the second scenario, the robot created its own objective and was trying to carry it out. And that's where we were sitting there going, we don't really know what it's trying to do because it was able to create its own objective. So when you're talking about the singularity, you're talking about, have we gotten to this stage yet where the robot is able to create its own objectives and has the capability to try to carry that out? When I'm talking to the senators, I'm saying, look, we're not in that stage. We're still over in this stage where we're still providing the objectives to the algorithms to try to figure out how to get to where we want to go. And even in this stage, we're at the very, very beginning, okay? We've understood neural networks. We're starting to study logic and how humans make sense of things. But in the actual computer world, IoT, at least in my world, represents sensors, things that allow me to understand what's happening around me 24/7, that's, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I could look at this light bulb and see if it flickers, or I could have my intern do it. Or I could put a meter on it and send the pattern to a computer, and that computer will learn that pattern. That's where we are today. We're still at the stage of just putting IoT devices everywhere so that we can provide information to an AI algorithm to have it learn patterns. We haven't made it beyond that part yet. So I would say it depends where you do, is it a curse, is it not? It depends on where you are in the stage.
Definitely, Landon, you gave the perspective, and now we can just talk about that, and it's a good conversation. Basically, the balance and the control. There are two major things which will take place going forward. As you said, we are evolving right now. We are just trying to see if those algorithms can work by using those IoT technologies and putting those sensors on those devices, and then if that makes sense in terms of doing some automation, some process improvement, so that human being can be more relaxed or can work on some more focus, core focus things. Right? So those are the things I see it, in my opinion, in my perspective, going forward down the road, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. Atlanta will be no longer horrible because Mr. Zhang, he went to Chicago and he said, okay, the roads were not good, but Atlanta is good in road conditions. But at the same time, Dr. May said traffic is not good. So, but going forward, when we will have the driverless cars, we are scared of even thinking about that. Yeah. But that is going to happen, believe me or not. And that point of time, if we do right things in terms of using that right IoT technologies with the right intentions, with having a proper control and the balance, this is going to be a blessings to us. But if people think in a different way and use this for some destructive mindset, it can be used in a different way as well. But that's where the governance and I would say the global control organizations, they are going to play their role basically.
Yeah, I guess actually what I know is the singularity actually will come much sooner than you think. It's not going to be 50 or 100 years. Actually, what I read is less than 30 years. It's actually, we're talking about 2040, 2049. That's the year. The machine is going to conquer us. Well, that's one side of view, right? So, but on the other hand, I mean, I think the way I look at this, I think I read it somewhere is that, people say, think about, 100 years ago when the airplane was first created, when people say, look at the plane actually get on the sky, geez, this is dangerous, let's regulate it, let's make sure it don't, kill people or things like that, right? But think about it, 100 years ago, people start just to figure out how to fly the plane. I mean, I think it's probably too early to start to stop, right? So I think we're at the same kind of a stage at that, to kind of Landon's point of view is that, I think it is, we need to remind ourselves it is dangerous, because AI, it is a machine, let's just say that, that you have never created before. I mean, you create cars, I mean, you can still stop the car, right? You create the plane, you can still don't go to the plane, right? I mean, the next most dangerous thing, probably nuclear weapon. I mean, if you have somebody united, get hold of that button, then boom, everybody gone, right? So I think AI probably is more dangerous than anything that we have created so far, is in a way that when it lost control, it lost the control. I mean, one of the things is that you can have the dictator, human dictator, where they will die after, let's say, in the old days, 70 years. I mean, they ruin you, they're cruel, they can kill people. But if are ruled by an AI, man, you are nowhere to go, right? So I think it is dangerous. So to that extent, we need to be careful. We need to start to do things that really can start to, I mean, I think Alan is really doing a good job in terms of raise this kind of concern, start to put things, check and balance. I think I heard that, is that, I think he started a project called OpenAI. What he does is that he exposed all the algorithms that, today that you can use to create this AI, so that people can watch all these algorithms, how does that work, so that you can check and balance, make sure people don't fall into some, bad guy's hand.
Okay, so I guess naturally, I guess it's better to talk about then what types of regulations or what types of ethics on AI has to be provided to better suit our human beings in this case, rather than the business model. What do you think? Yeah.
Well, I would say one thing about the business model, all right? So as we're talking about algorithms, you understand that, these algorithms help the computer run through its thinking process. As was mentioned earlier, we understand the neural network and the algorithms back in the 80s. We just didn't have the computing capacity to actually carry them out and to carry them forward and experiment with them. Cloud computing has enabled many more people to play around with AI than previous, okay? So when I say cloud computing, just so everybody understands, from my perspective, if I need 400 computers to run an algorithm, I need to go out, prior to cloud computing, I'd have to go out and buy 400 computers. And if I don't have the money for 400 computers, I'm not creating AI, okay? But with cloud computing, with Amazon and Microsoft and Google, they have the ability to charge you for 1 hour's worth of 400 computers that can turn on for 1 hour and then turn off. And so you're able to run your algorithm, you're able to do your experiments, and you don't have to have all that capital asset on your books to run that experiment, which basically means you have the big companies that can make AI, and you have your little guy that can do AI. And today, because you have IoT devices that are really cheap, $5, and then you have the really expensive ones, which are like $100,000, you can have citizen scientists run sensors, run an algorithm, and make that entire algorithm open sourced, all right? Prior to this, the Honeywells, the Siemens, the large companies, they had proprietary AI. They had their own building automation systems. They made it proprietary. They had the money to run algorithms that would actually be effective. And moving forward, the real question will be the battle of what is better, a proprietary AI algorithm or one that's going to be open sourced, right? The open source might not be as accurate as a proprietary one, but if I'm starting up a manufacturing company and I'm looking to put AI in something I'm building, I'm going to look at that open source. But if I am very wealthy and I need to have it very detailed and I want to make sure that everything's exact, do I spend the extra money on that proprietary AI? And I guess the real question down the road over the next 5 years will be which one of these platforms will win the day in the artificial intelligence market. Open source or proprietary, and when do you choose? So that'd be my conversation on the market.
Let's keep going about the business model first.
Sure.
Also make sure we also allow the audience to ask questions.
We have time.
Absolutely. Yeah, so my perspective to that is it's applicable to anything what we do basically. Since we are on the dais and we are talking about AI, it is applicable to AI. But when we started learning computer or doing something in cloud is nothing but we just named it. Right? We just named it that way. Instead of that hardware or the servers are sitting in our server room or our data center, it is sitting somewhere else. Right? Those are the things were already there. Only thing is we named it that way. Only thing is now we are evolving, as Michael said, down the road. Like if the robot is there, and if they are doing something destructive, or if we are using that for, let's say, example, for some good reasons, for like hospitals or the human care or for the betterment of the life or something like that, that can be turned out well. Only thing is the balance and the control, like internet. Like when we started, I was one of the conference in like for the internet, global internet pro with the FBI's agents and all. They were talking about that because they are struggling because since this is a business symposium, I would like to talk about that little bit because every other country has to realize that it's not just the one country's problem if it is going in wrong direction. So if it is going to be a problem down the road 5 years, 10 years, then every other country has to be united on this front and take the decisions and put those protocols together, basically.
Yeah, I think, since we talk about business application, right, I want to talk something dearly to me, which is what we worked on as well as from the insurance perspective. Well, let me just generalize that a little bit. I think this AI thing is going to disrupt pretty much everything, the way how you think about your business, the way how you think about it, you used to do business. I mean, look at our Nexus example. We used to collect a lot of data from, you name it. We hold a lot of data about people, about vehicle, about, entity, a lot of things. But with this AI, we talk about this Internet of Things. We talk about all these other data points. Some of the things is really going to help from the insurance perspective where I'm not sure how many of you have heard about this telematics. Have you heard about it, right? You probably, some of the insurance company probably say, hey, can you install this app on your phone? When you drive, turn it on. I'm going to evaluate how good you drive. If you're a really good driver, like you said, right, and you save money, right? So, I mean, that can save you a lot of, for your consumer, you save money that way. But also, it saves a lot from the insurance perspective because think about all those touch points where they have to do the business with you. When you're putting underwriting, they need to know the risk of you. When you truly get in an accident, they know what exact the accident is. Right, the claims, so they can better give you the claims. And also there are a lot of fraud situation that you have to deal with as well. I mean, think about it, if you have those data points already within your car, like at OEM, we talk about that, we don't need the phone, because nowadays the car is already connected. 60% of the car you're driving today, they're all connected. So those data points, it's all related to the AI. We connect those data, we analyze it, we give it to our customer, they can make a better decision about you. And, when I look at my organization, 5 years ago, we're doing things, probably half our business is very different than what it used to be.
So for those type of use cases, there will be some standard in terms of developing those kind of things as I said, each country level, at business entity, and at the same time, when we have this standard at the business entity level, there will be some exceptional handling cases together, so that because any algorithm is not going to work if we are not putting that logic together to drive that scenario, right? So we have to be very, very, very detail oriented in terms of if the 5-year-old or 15-year-old passenger is sitting in the car and 90 years is walking on the pedestrian. So what we are supposed to do? And sometime it is a left-hand drive. In some country it is a right-hand drive. So we have to understand which is the free side, right or left, right? So those things has to be taken care, and that will be taken care. Only thing is we should not get overwhelmed by looking or thinking about that. I would say it's overthinking, but we are human beings, so we think and we are smart.
Sure, I guess there are already questions to be asked.
Okay.
Don't worry about it.
Oh, is it okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think you guys are all, I mean, the one thing I think I emphasize from the ethical perspective is transparency. I mean, all these things that these guys are talking about, right? Who should preserve, right? What kind of policy we should establish there. I mean, it's really, I think you guys all hear Google said, don't do evil. Until now, right? So, until when? I mean, I think the thing is, if you put some of this power into very limited, few people, make them to make decisions, use your terminology, proprietary, determine that proprietary, I think sooner or later there will be a problem. Yeah. I mean, like Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg was there for last week, well, actually this week, right, just now. You used to trust them very much, right? You think they're, handling your data very well. So I think a lot of this kind of issues, unless you expose that, anything that you expose under the sun and really start examine that. I think this open AI, that initiative that created by a lot of these smart people like Elon Musk and some other guys, really expose some of this algorithm behind all these AI decisions, let people know why we make those decisions. I think that's very important. Of course, we cannot figure all those things out now, but I think the good approach is that we need to do that collaboratively. We need to hold that responsible collectively. We need to have this transparency and go forward. I believe human beings should be able to smart than the machine.
Thank you very much for the comments, Michael. Okay, so finally, most difficult part, Q&A session. So if you have any questions to ask to the panels.
Well, my question is, you have the AI for good guy. How about I have AI for bad guy that create fake data, huge amount of fake data to fool you around? And then how are you going to deal with this fake data? The small fake data, though, not the regular fake data, because I know that good AI can tell which data is fake and which is good, right? Which real, which is good, fake. But the Facebook, what the issue they're facing the last election is there's some fake ad, fake news, and eventually, long-term wise, I think the AI field, there will be people who make ton of money, create some really good AI, create a mass fake data, can fool the good AI guy.
Yeah, okay, I think a very interesting question. Actually, I actually watched Mark Zuckerberg for the most part, where his testimony, is it called hearing, sorry. I think two things I take away. I think he's really just addressed the issue you just talked about. If there's bad AI, there's good AI too, I would think, right? So, as a matter of fact, there are two ways that Mark Zuckerberg said he's going to deal with this data this fake data issue. One is called, he's going to actually apply more AI into this domain so that they can make determinations. Who is the bad, who is, they can tell, right? Secondly, again, this is where the human factor, in addition to all these things, technology they have been using, they actually hired 20,000 people across the globe in Facebook. They're doing nothing but doing the content review and all this type of thing. So that's where I get to my previous point, is that AI can be very smart, but at the end of the day, human being probably still smarter. That's where really I think that the solutions come into.
Yeah, other questions?
Question?
Can any one of you answer my question? What's the future of the Bitcoin?
Of the what?
Bitcoin.
Bitcoin?
Cryptocurrencies.
Anyone?
Also, is that legal right now in the United States?
Yeah.
And any future for that?
Well, okay, first, as a federal officer, I cannot discuss.
Why not?
But
I mean, so you
that's
should
it,
tell
all
me
right.
the,
That, you know, the ups or downs of a particular company. I can tell you this, all right? You have to understand why blockchain technology, the underlying technology of Bitcoin, is so attractive to governments, all right? If, let's just take one thing that a government wants to do, right? Taxes, right? If we're coming up on. If I am able to track every serial dollar or every serial number on every dollar that transverses our economy, I could tell you when money comes out of the Federal Reserve, right? Hand it off to the Treasury, Treasury off to the banks lend it to a company, the company uses it to pay their employees go home, they buy their groceries, they might be even paying a nanny or a gardener, and then that gardener's going to go off and buy groceries. And I can follow that dollar the entire route, which means as a revenue activity, I know exactly where I get taxes. I know exactly where you have to contribute and how much, and I know exactly when you did it. So in any country, and that's just taxes, that's not even talking about money laundering and all the other criminal things, that's just good sense for any organization to say, hey, we know we're actually entitled through our business process to collect this money, and through our current way of collecting, we're not finding it all. And this is a way for them to actually do that. So that's why it's attractive. So I can't imagine blockchain disappearing. I have nothing to say about cryptocurrency, though.
thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Ria Peters. So my question is, so like last week I heard a talk from the president of World Bank. He was saying that on behalf of the changes in AI and other technological disruptions, the changes that he found from various generations, like when he watched his dad, he said like he worked 16 hours a day and that kept his dad busy. When it came to him, he worked like 8 to 9 hours a day, and that kept him really very busy. So in the next few generations, we could expect young millennials or future generations who would like work 4 to 5 hours a day, and that would keep them really busy. And how do you think this AI disruptions would impact everyone in the future?
So let me answer in a different way, okay? So there are countries where they just work for 4 days, okay? And just for 7 hours. So here in US we work 5 days, 8 hours, right? So everything what we do, okay, so let me put it this way. Who is driving technology? Are we driving technology or technology is driving us?
We are driving.
We are driving. So it's chosen thing, what we choose, how we choose, and what decision we make. So answer to your question, how you are going to see these changes in coming years. I have a lot of millennials in my company where I work with them very closely. You can meet them 2 or 3 here right now. So I call them, okay, if you are going to do this way, you are going to run or having that mindset, okay, we can do all these things sitting at home or the Starbucks all the time, and we are not supposed to work in office, and we can work remotely and work can be done. Yeah, of course, that can be done, but there are different degree of successes in terms of getting those things done and making that money. And making money is not just one thing for the millennials, because you are going to lose that kind of heritage or the working environment or the business culture which took, I think, a century to reach to this point. So there are pros and cons in terms of going that direction. Definitely you can make money, and in early age of your career you can make a lot of $1 million and so and so. But we have to be a little careful as well same time.
Thank you.
I just quickly say something. This topic is actually very dear to me. You're so smart to raise this question. Actually, I was trying to save this. When you say what's the last minute, I'm going to say that. But now I'm going to respond to this because I have 2 daughters of my own. One is 17, one is 14. I actually have worried about them very much. You know, even though my older one is very smart, my younger one not so much. Indeed, I'm kind of asking myself what they're going to do 20 years from now, right? I know we have a lot of young folks here as well. I'm not sure if you guys ask yourself the same job that you do today, most likely because, according to the statistics, 60% of the job today is going to be automated by AI in the future. 60%. What that means, just like you said, you used to work maybe 8 hours a day, now you only work 3 hours a day. And the other 8 hours you could lie on the beach, right? Or you go through your Facebook or whatever. That's still your life. I guess it's hard to predict the future, but I think it's always we can look back at the history. So for example, when the motor vehicle, when the car was first invented, people were just crazy, right? I mean, in the 1920s, literally the invention of the cars bring down the entire U.S. Farmer industry.